Growing up, I was always able to get into different video game genres quite easily, especially when it comes to very fast-paced games. I played quite a bit of FIFA, LEGO Star Wars, Call of Duty, Mortal Kombat. Now let me be clear, I was not good at any of these games, but I really enjoyed them, and that might be because they were either very well made, or I was an extremely hyper child. The one genre I just couldn't get into though was stealth. I was, and I can't emphasize this enough, terrible at being sneaky. I employed the classic strategy of attempting to be stealthy for all but 3 seconds before mowing down everyone and calling it a day. I would use this strategy all the time, so I never really felt the need to take stealth more seriously. However, over time, my relationship with stealth in games has changed drastically, and I've developed an appreciation for the genre in recent years that I never really had before. My initial exposure to stealth games was thanks to Ubisoft. Now I know I criticized them in my Inside video, but they were a big reason why I love video games now. I was a little too young to play the original classic Assassin's Creed games, so I started with Black Flag, which I absolutely loved. Being an assassin was cool as hell, being a pirate was even cooler, and let's be honest, the best part of the game by far was the naval combat. I've loved many of the entries in the series, and my favorite might be Unity. I'm sorry, I know a lot of people really don't like that game, but I can't lie, this is the one that I think I've played the most. I think part of the reason for the series' success is not only because assassins are really cool, the concept of the Animus is really interesting, and new gameplay mechanics were introduced with each new entry, but I also think the appeal was this kind of accessibility to stealth. As far as I can tell, stealth in video games prior to Assassin's Creed was very challenging and required a lot of patience and the mastering of certain mechanics. Take Splinter Cell Chaos Theory for example. The stealth mechanics are so complex in that game. Sound plays such a crucial role that if you really wanted to get through the levels unnoticed, it could take hours depending on your familiarity with the game. There's a sound meter on the bottom right that lets you know not only how much sound you're making, but also how much sound you need to make to get noticed, using a little white box. If you're in complete silence, the box is on the far left, and if you're in a noisy room, the box drifts further to the right. Light is equally as important, with its own dedicated meter indicating how visible you are. This part in particular shows just how quickly and organically these two bars can change.
That time I'm sure I see something. See, be on your guard. Something's up.
The guards head over because they heard the shot, but when they do, they basically won't be able to see me at all. I feel like this level of detail in stealth disappeared during the late 2000s with the release of the early Assassin's Creed games, as they presented a template for much more forgiving stealth mechanics and allowed for a larger demographic to enjoy stealth. There were many more places to hide and to be essentially invisible, like the classic bales of hay or even hiding in crowds. There were also all of these ways to distract enemies too, like using cherry bombs in Unity or, in a broader sense, smoke bombs to run away from danger or to take out a target in smoke. The series adopted a forgiving combat system, so that if you were spotted and attacked, the movement combined with a variety of tools at your disposal made evasion a much more feasible option to attempt stealth once more. It also became much more optional, becoming something that you could almost completely ignore even in games with robust stealth mechanics. I mean, how many times have you seen me remain unnoticed or don't set off the alarm side objective that you will at some point inevitably fail? These types of changes even bled over into the Splinter Cell series itself with the release of Conviction in 2010. Now I might make another video on this game because I have a lot to say about it, but it was a fairly radical departure from the intense stealth that the series was known for. It adopted a much more user-friendly approach, ditching the sound and light bars and simplifying almost every aspect of the game. If you crouched, you were silent. If you were in the shadows, you were invisible. Hell, the game even turns into a 1940s noir-style movie the moment you walk out of the light. You can even see enemies through walls. There's the mark and execute system that allows you to take out enemies very quickly, and you have a number of really useful tools at your disposal to make it even easier to get through an area unnoticed. Stealth was much easier to accomplish, and with the deniable ops mode, you could experiment with different playstyles with different loadouts and parameters. Now I won't go into it too much now because, you know, topic for another day and all that, but the difference from Chaos Theory to Conviction is definitely noticeable. This alternative approach to Ubisoft's game design was in full swing by the time I started playing games like Black Flag and Unity. It allowed me to employ my playstyle of try stealth until you fail and then decimate everyone. In times where I was forced to be stealthy throughout an entire level, the stealth mechanics were forgiving enough that after maybe 2 or 3 tries, I'd eventually get through it, even if it was quite messy. So all in all, I tolerated stealth mechanics, but never really engaged with them on a deeper level because I never really needed to, nor enjoyed them enough to want to. This all changed once I started playing the Hitman series. Now, I technically played a part of the first level of Blood Money, but I found it too hard to fully get into it at the time because I was way too young, so I actually consider my first experience playing Hitman with Absolution. This is an odd entry to start with because it's kind of considered to be the black sheep of the Hitman series, but this was the very first time in which I fully gave stealth a try because that was kind of the point of the whole franchise. So I felt obligated to at least attempt sneakiness. At this point, I'd gotten used to games catering equally to both playstyles, but this was the very first time in my experience that every single mechanic in the game points towards being the big sneak. So I tried it and it was very difficult, especially for someone who had spent their life up to that point being indifferent to these kinds of games. But once I learned the mechanics, I realized that it really wasn't that different from everything else that I was playing. The stealth mechanics were very user-friendly, so I really didn't find it all too challenging once I was able to get out of the try once then shoot everything mindset. It was actually rewarding to fully utilize what the game provided, and being able to get to the very end of a level without being spotted at all was really rewarding. What also helped was the scoring system, which rewarded players who were sneaky and completed certain objectives. So not only was there a personal satisfaction with overcoming a challenge that had stumped me for years, but the game was actively rewarding me for it. Not only that, but this was the first time in which running and gunning was actively punished by the game by reducing your score, giving an even greater incentive to be stealthy. Even with that being the case, I would still resort to flat out gunning people down on certain occasions because the game still technically allowed it, and also because sometimes I really just wasn't in the mood to sneak around the 300th guard. But this definitely showed me a different side to stealth that made me think that maybe this was for me. Maybe I might enjoy this even more than running and gunning. And then the next Hitman game came out. This changed everything for me. This was the first time in a game where running and gunning was as hard as being stealthy. There were guards and cameras everywhere, restricted areas where you can get spotted very easily, and everyone is fairly eagle-eyed with a few exceptions. You can't just tip your cap when you're in disguise like in Absolution either. Here, even when disguised, there are people who will recognize you for the incredibly suspicious man that you are. For a guy whose job it is to blend in, he sure sticks out a whole lot. Random people will even make comments about him as he walks past.
Hey, sharp threads, buddy.
Maybe because people are very perceptive and are extroverted enough to give compliments to strangers, or maybe it's because 47 has photoshopped eyes and the build of a posh T1000. But regardless, it restricted the gameplay to almost exclusively stealth and, in doing so, created an unprecedented level of freedom in the way that is achieved. When you're restricted like this, you have to come up with creative ways to achieve an objective. Used to the fullest extent, it's insane just how much you can get done with just 3 coins and a lockpick. In fact, the freedom in this game is one of the biggest reasons why I love it so much. IO Interactive opted to have more open, episodic missions, where you get to explore an entire area, and some of them are truly impressive in size. Quite often, I'll revisit a map that I haven't played in a while, and I'll get XP for discovering a new area, and I'll think to myself, how have I never been here before? All over these maps are little opportunities that at first may seem insignificant, but are usually important stepping stones to taking out one of the targets. Let's take the very first mission that's set during a Paris fashion show. You start outside of the building, and you have to make your way inside and take out 2 targets who occupy different floors of this immense structure. Off the bat, you have 2 options. You can either go inside right away and find out as much as possible about the targets, where they go, different items and opportunities around the first floor, or you can explore outside, see where you can go, which areas are restricted and why, and see if there are any entry points. Let's say you head inside. You explore for a bit, and in one of the bathrooms you find a discarded keycard that gives you access to an auction happening on the top floor. You take the card and head over to where 2 guards are waiting. You show them the card and they let you in. So far so good. You head through to the next room where 2 more guards are waiting. You go up the stairs to find that most areas up here are restricted, So you follow the path you're allowed to go on and find 2 more guards by another flight of stairs. Ah, no bueno. But we walked past the bin on the first floor that had that little box by it, indicating we could interact with it. Head back down to the bin and... So now, Dahlia, you really need to hire new security. This is pitiful. Anyway, you head back, past the frisk, and now you have access to the top floor. More opportunities, more things to explore, but now you realize, hey, I haven't got a gun. And if you wanted to take care of one of the targets quickly and from a distance, you either need to... Oh god, I'm sorry. Oh lord. I don't know why I'm burping so much. You either need to find another, preferably silenced gun, or a throwable lethal item, like a knife. You wander around the floor for a bit, and you come across the target. Hello, Dahlia. Oh hey, here's a screwdriver. Very nice. Exploring a bit more leads to this open bar where Dahlia comes every so often, and maybe we can get her to this little secluded area. Do you see what's just happened? We're in a fairly decent position to take out one of the targets, all from a set of decisions starting from simply exploring the first floor. What? And there are so many tiny opportunities like this scattered around every single level. You can also take advantage of different story opportunities that pop up as you explore. You'll hear a conversation or come across a document on a table that gives you information that you can use to take out the target. There are an almost infinite number of combinations of these sorts of moments and events that you can take advantage of. How you complete the objectives in each mission is completely up to you, with only some minor exceptions in the second and third installments, as they have more specific requirements, like having to find the 3 clues around the area during the Whittleton Creek mission. It's almost open world in its freedom of exploration, but it's far more concentrated. No other game I'd ever played works quite like this, and at first, it was definitely difficult to get used to, but what I began to realize was that I enjoyed taking my time, learning mechanics and mastering a certain level far more than just running around gunning people down. Wrench. Run over, open the door, in a second, give it a second. I swear to God, this is the body. Don't come back in, don't come back in, don't come back in, don't come back in. Don't come back in. Nice, okay. I didn't realize up to this point that this was the type of freedom and challenge that I wanted in games. And you know what's funny? It actually makes running and gunning more fun because of the focus and stealth. In most of the action games where you're encouraged to run around taking out bad guys left, right, and center, difficulty is based on the health and damage output of enemies. The higher the difficulty, the harder they hit, and the harder it is to take them down. And in the case of Call of Duty, the more random stuff kills you out of nowhere.
Okay, run away.
Jesus, okay. Okay. Oh god damn. Come on. Can I get like a second? Can I get like a second? I can barely see that guy. Oh wait, that's a teammate? Who are we shooting at right now? Hi guys. Who was shooting me from behind? Who was... What? What killed me? Genuinely, what killed me there? Okay. Oh my nose. Oh god. Oh, I'm sorry, Mason. Give me a second. Okay. I'm gonna... Ooh. How am I supposed to know that's gonna happen? But in the recent Hitman games, difficulty works a little bit differently. Although enemy health and damage output does change depending on the difficulty, the main difference comes with enemy numbers, security cameras, and saves, with you only having one single save on master difficulty. I think this is a much better way of going about it because instead of it feeling arbitrary, it actively forces you to change your approach to each level. You could build a really effective strategy for casual difficulty that is no longer viable once you bump up to professional because of camera placement and guards. And the same relationship can exist between professional and master. During playthroughs of the New York level, these differences are clear to see. On casual, I started at the main entrance and climbed down this part before distracting a guard, taking him out, and taking his uniform. I went over to the IT room where I found a document on a desk which led to a mission story. Took out one of the IT guys, took his keycard, and went over to the director's office to fix her laptop, pulled a prank, took out her bodyguard, disguised myself as her guard, and then went down to the vault, said hello to my colleagues, opened the vault, and took the data. Stuck past the guard and the janitor, and home free. But going through this mission on professional is a much more delicate operation. Now, I followed basically the exact same steps as the casual playthrough, but I got spotted a whole lot more, so I had to bid farewell to any chance of getting Silent Assassin on this one. There are cameras now, so if you wanted to complete certain challenges, you'd have to either not get spotted or destroy the evidence afterwards. Also, more people can see through your disguise too. This happened twice on the professional playthrough, once when I was disguised as the IT guy, and the next when I was the target's bodyguard. I got spotted by the camera a whole lot, and the only way I was able to destroy the evidence is because I was lucky enough to have it in the room where I took out the target. On other maps, you aren't so lucky. When it comes to health and damage, this might seem the exact same as Call of Duty, but I would argue that it's very different. Even on casual difficulty, Agent 47 still dies pretty quickly, so no matter what difficulty you're on, combat is still widely discouraged. The real difficulty, in my opinion, concerns strategy. Not only can Agent 47 be knocked down by a slight breeze, but in certain situations you can get cornered pretty quickly. So now running around gunning people down is itself a challenge for you to overcome in creative ways, in the same way that it is for stealth. You can't just run around emptying infinite magazines into surrounding enemies effortlessly, but it doesn't restrict you from fully going John Wick, so you just have to be more tactical about it. For the Bangkok level as an example, I actually failed my first try at this because I got cornered in this one room. On another attempt, I found my way into this room in the basement where guards could only come in from two directions right in front of me. So as long as I stayed behind this desk and ran out every so often for ammo, I was fine. But I had to go back and replan after I failed the first time to equip a different and more powerful starting pistol. When I was replanning, I realized that I was doing the exact same thing in stealth as I was doing outside of stealth, trying a certain tactic, failing, and replanning to approach it from a different angle. By making stealth harder, it also makes the Call of Duty-esque gameplay harder too, but in a way that feels personally rewarding once you've overcome the challenge. There is no fully easy option in this game. Both stealth and non-stealth approaches are equally as challenging, so no matter what you do, you have to prepare properly. Crafting your own approach and then executing it effectively brings a level of satisfaction and personal pride that I rarely feel playing other games. And I like how you still get rewarded for doing certain actions around the map despite the running and gunning approach, but I also love how the game goes out of its way to let you know it's not happy with your massacre. This game made me realize how unrewarding running and gunning outside of the Hitman series felt. I started to realize that when other games up the difficulty so that enemies have more health and do more damage, I didn't feel personally satisfied when I eventually got through it. It made me realize how arbitrary that kind of difficulty progression was. So through this whole process, I learned a lot about myself and the way I play games, but I also learned a lot about difficulty and how, when done in a particular way, it creates its own reward system. The effect that this game had on me is still going strong to this day. When I try a game for the first time that has stealth mechanics, I'll try to master them and do my best to get through a level without being seen. I'll even restart levels when I am seen, just because I want the personal satisfaction of having taken my time. There may not even be an in-game reward for being stealthy, but I just find it far more satisfying to take things slower and to be more observant, so I can feel proud to have completed the challenge in my own way. I focus more on how I get through a level, more than just reaching the end. I've realized this works for a multitude of different games and genres too. While writing the script for this video, fighting games like Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, and Injustice came to mind because there's a similar mentality to stealth games as there are to fighting games. That being mastering the mechanics over time and being proud of your own personal progress. But I'm sure there are so many other genres that it can be applied to. With each new game, I feel like I try to get the hang of the mechanics quickly and then try to master the elements of the game that I get the most joy out of. That way, I'm less obsessed with reaching the end of a mission or a game, and I'm more focused on just enjoying it the way I want to, because I find it a much better use of my time and energy. It's through this that I've also learned to stop playing a game when I don't enjoy it anymore. I think before, I used to force myself to get to the end even if I didn't enjoy it that much, because either I'd gotten far enough through that I might as well see the end, or because I was under the impression that seeing it through to the end would make me proud of my own perseverance. But neither one brings me the same satisfaction as just putting down the controller when I've had enough. Avowed is a good example of this, where I got about 10-ish hours through and just thought, yeah, I'm good, and stopped playing. And it wasn't because I thought it was bad, I just got to a point where I had no more interest in the combat nor the world. And this has happened with plenty of other games too, where I feel completely satisfied with my experience without having reached its finale. It makes me feel better about the game, because I have fonder memories when I don't see the end but still enjoyed it, rather than an experience that I enjoyed for the first 8 hours and then didn't for the next 12. And, without getting too deep, I think this can also be applied to other aspects of life too, whether it's a hobby or a profession. I think there's value in taking a step back, learning the intricacies and approaching the challenge from a different angle to see if it works. And if it doesn't, taking a step back again and reevaluating instead of brute forcing your way through it and potentially being dissatisfied even if it's completed. Maybe it's time to take it in a different direction, or maybe it's time to finish it here and move on to something else. So thank you, Stealth Games. May you only get more creative and challenging as time goes on. I just wanted to say very quickly that I won't be posting again for another 2, maybe 3 weeks. I'm gonna be away for a bit, so I'll start working on the next video when I get back, but there might just be a bit of a delay for the upload. So yeah, just look out for that. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.